Marcel, hi. 1,000 Pine Points to you. Yes, you are first. Merry Christmas to all. I'm an atheist who celebrates Christmas gladly, cheerfully, with a grateful heart. To who? Not to anybody up there. I'm a new subscriber. Well, welcome, Navigator. You're 250 Pine Points to you and 500 to Rami Gilnius. 500 Pine Points to you. I do not want to bash anybody. Right now I'm actually feeling very sorry for the family of Ravi Zacharias. Can you imagine how his wife feels? My goodness. And his children. My goodness. Oh. You had this concept of your husband and your dad for decades. I'm assuming they knew nothing of this. Oh, wouldn't that be terrible if they did? The wife or the kids knew something about this, but I'm assuming they didn't. And then find out this is what your dad did. He had one life, on stage, one life when nobody was looking. Ravi Zacharias was my favorite apologist when I was a Christian. Well, at least in my early 20s. And I loved the way he used quotations, poetry. He basically met people where they were at on an emotional level. And I would not be surprised if Ravi Zacharias saved lives. In fact, I'm quite confident that there are probably people who were suicidal and they found Ravi Zacharias Ministries, found Ravi, heard his story of him being suicidal, found Jesus, I guess, and they're still alive today. There's probably many, many great things that Ravi Zacharias has done. I know there is. I'm sure he's helped the poor, helped people who are psychologically damaged and mentally ill and all these things. But I don't know if I should just do my take on this. There's a lesson to be learned here, and it's probably a different lesson than most Christians are thinking about. But the lesson I get from this that Christians are really going to dislike is that Christians, you do not know Jesus. You know what some texts say about Jesus. You know what some traditions say about Jesus. But Christians, you do not know Jesus, just like you did not really know Ravi Zacharias. Christians, you do not know the life and ministry of Jesus. You know what some texts and traditions say decades later about the life and ministry of Jesus. Christians, you know the life and ministry of Ravi Zacharias 1,000,000 times better than you know the life and ministry of Jesus. Christians, you do not know, you have not experienced Jesus. You have experienced some type of psychological priming in the context of church, music, based on the texts and traditions. That you have experienced, but you have not experienced Jesus. Some of you have experienced Ravi Zacharias. You have gone to his ministry, seen him on stage. Some of you listening might have even talked to him personally. Many of you have read his books. In a lot of ways, there are Christians today who have experienced Ravi Zacharias in a real and personal way 1,000,000 times better than Jesus. This is the lesson to be learned here. You thought you knew the character of a man named Ravi Zacharias. You didn't. You might have known some of his character, but you didn't know all of it. You think you know the character of Jesus. You don't. And how much better is the evidence for Ravi Zacharias than what we have for Jesus? To me, this is a no-brainer. If you can shelf your hope, meaning, and purpose for 30 seconds, you can see this. You can see what I'm saying is true. Okay, let's get into what I'm actually talking about. Some of you might not have any idea what I'm talking about, but Ravi Zacharias was accused of, or there was allegations of sexual misconduct. It's such a dirty word, I can't even say it. And a lot of Christians denied it and said, this is, sure, after he's dead, people have these accusations. This is just the devil playing tricks and so forth, trying to get people away from Christianity and so forth. But just yesterday afternoon, Ravi Zacharias Ministries came out with a statement, and I got it up here. And let's read it. In August 2020, allegations of sexual misconduct were made against our founder, Ravi Zacharias. Unfortunately, Ravi had died several months before we first learned of these allegations, so we were unable to explore them with him directly. We engaged Miller and Martin to investigate these allegations while also giving them a wide latitude to go wherever their investigation might lead them. We have also reportedly stated our intention to not comment on the investigation until receiving the final report on it. However, while the investigation remains ongoing, it is not expected to be completed until January or February. Yesterday, we received a brief interim update on the investigation, which we felt we needed to share attached, and I got that open here. Sadly, the interim investigation update indicates this assessment of Ravi's behavior to be true, that he did indeed engage in sexual misconduct. This misconduct is deeply troubling and wholly inconsistent with the man Ravi Zacharias presented both publicly and privately to so many over more than 4 decades of public ministry. By the way, this just popped into my head. I made a bet, I think a couple of months ago, that Ravi Zacharias Ministries would change their name. No Christian took me up on that bet. But it's looking like if someone would have, I would have won. We are heartbroken at learning this, but feel it necessary to be transparent and to inform our staff, donors, and supporters at this time, even while the investigation continues. We will speak more comprehensively to all concerned after the completion of the investigation. We are devastated for those who have suffered from Ravi's misconduct and for the pain that they are enduring. They have asked for confidentiality and anonymity, and both we and the investigators are committed to honoring their wishes. This preliminary statement is not intended to cut short the investigation or predict its full outcome. We want to ensure that investigators have appropriate time and space to complete their work and allow those who may still desire to have a voice in this process to do so. We ask for continued patience as we complete the lengthy process of investigating serious allegations. Yeah, the sad thing about this, as it goes on, it's going to just get worse and worse because there's going to probably, this is my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think there's going to be some people coming out of the woodwork who want money, and some of these allegations will indeed be false, but the real issue is the ones that are true. RZIM will publicly release the Miller and Martin report as it's given to the board as soon as possible after the investigation is complete. In the meantime, we share your compassion for any victims, prayers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and so now here's the attached Miller and Martin email. It's very short. As you know, my firm was hired by Ravi Zacharias Ministries to conduct an independent investigation into allegations of sexual harassment. By the way, congratulations to RZIM Ministries for doing this, hiring this independent investigator in the first place. This communication is intended to provide the special committee of the RZIM Board of Directors with a very high-level interim update of the investigation so far. As to methodology, which is very important in my opinion, we contracted with a well-regarded private investigations firm to assist in this matter. Over the past several weeks, our investigation team has interviewed dozens of witnesses whose identities will remain known only to Miller and Martin investigation team as agreed by the RZIM Board of Directors. I wonder if the police are involved yet. including many massage therapists who treated Mr. Zacharias. For those of you who don't know, Ravi Zacharias at one time was at least part owner in massage parlors. Is that a bad way of saying it? Some of the therapists whom we spoke with worked at Touch of Eden and Javon Wellness Spas mentioned in the September 29, 2020 Christianity Today article, and others provided treatments to Mr. Zacharias at different points in time. In addition to witness interviews, we have reviewed numerous documents and this is important. We have reviewed numerous documents and electronic devices used by Mr. Zacharias over the years. So my guess is they could actually trace what the witnesses are saying to how much Ravi Zacharias paid for whatever the witness did to him. That's my guess. As to the scope, we were hired specifically to investigate the sexual harassment alleged to have occurred at the Touch of Eden and Javon Wellness Spas roughly a decade ago. However, we were given broad discretion and authority to follow leads in other sexual misconduct that might arise, and this is exactly what we have done. At this time, we are not disclosing any specific conduct we are investigating beyond the spa allegations, but the full breadth of our investigation will be addressed in the final report. While some of the massage therapists we have tried to interview are not willing to share their experiences with us, many have spoken candidly and with great detail. Combining those interviews with our review of documents and electronic data, we have found significant, credible evidence that Mr. Zacharias engaged in sexual misconduct over the course of many years. Some of that misconduct is consistent with and corroborative of that which is reported in the news recently, and some of the conduct we have uncovered is more serious. So some of the stuff that's been in the news, for those of you who don't know, is basically that Ravi Zacharias was alone in getting massaged by women, that he had women flown in from India to give him massages. He had a bad back, but that alone, is a red flag, especially from a guy who says he's never been alone with a woman other than his wife. But this is very interesting, and some of the conduct we have uncovered is more serious than even that stuff. Our investigation is ongoing, and we will continue to pursue leads. We intend to conclude in January, February, blah, blah, blah. Keep the victim's identity confidential. Lindsay M. Barron, attorney at law. Okay. So what you'll find Christians say to stuff like this is some will deny it and say, well, we should wait till the final report. Some of the Christians who hear this are going to doubt the testimony of these witnesses, which is so ironic to me if you think about it. We have people who are living and breathing. We have people you can look into their eyes. We have people you could hook up a lie detector test to, saying that Ravi did this, asked them to do this to him. And yet you believe eyewitness, in quotes, testimony from documents written decades after Jesus walked the earth. Do you see the disparity there? I'm talking to those Christians who are basically poo-pooing any women who have come forward saying that Ravi has done something wrong. Hey, thank you for the donation, Tony D. What? Say it ain't so. Yeah, this is very common especially when you have someone who has very low self-esteem, like Ravi Zacharias did at least one time in his life. You don't have good self-esteem if you try to commit suicide. That's pretty reasonable, right? So when you come from a family or upbringing where you don't get that self-esteem, you try to commit suicide, and then all of a sudden, decades later, you're in a very powerful position called Ravi Zacharias Ministries, where people love and adore you, where you sell packed out stadiums for people to listen to you. that type of change and power is very dangerous. Let me get rid of this. But the point is that those Christians who will discredit any witness testimony here just gobble up and swallow wholesale the testimony they read in the Gospels and in the epistles. Why? Why the inconsistency? I don't get it. Well, I do get it. Hope, meaning, and purpose. And just to give you a flavor of, I'm not making this stuff up about how people are reacting. Here's actually, let me recapture this. This is just, I saw this on my feed. This is Mike Winger's channel. Mike Winger made a post on this. And here's just some of the comments. So sad, but thankfully our standard for Christian faith is not a man, but rather Christ, the ultimate example for all. Thank you for sharing the statement, Mike. Frost X dash, you don't know Christ. The evidence for Ravi Zacharias' life and ministry is 1,000,000 times better than that for Christ. You did not know Ravi, therefore you do not know Christ. Let's see here. My faith is in no one else than Jesus Christ. Why? Praying for those directly affected by Ravi's sin. I've learned so much. To learn about the reality of what I had hoped it was a false accusation. Why did you hope that? Well, I understand why you hope that. I'm among the ones who can't cast the first stone for my own sins would prevent me from it, as well as the redemptive work of Christ in my own life. See, when you say your faith is found in no one else than Jesus Christ, Marisol, is that Marosi Alvarez? Your faith is not in Jesus Christ. Your faith is in documents and traditions written decades after about a guy who is called the Christ. Your faith is not in a real man named Jesus Christ. Your faith is in an idea based on those texts and traditions and your own personal experiences of who Jesus Christ is. This is the lesson to be learned here from Ravi Zacharias. The difference between him and those who do not act upon their fleshly desires or inclinations is exactly that. The evil of men is evident not in actions alone, but in the place where those thoughts take seed and are nurtured, and that's in our hearts. It is desperately wicked. We have been guilty of the same actions of Mr. Zacharias, for Jesus said that if anyone looks at a woman with lustful intent, he has already committed adultery in his heart. Yes, Jonah is right on here. And this is another problem with Christianity, that the whole idea that what Jonah is saying here is that he and other people are just as guilty as Ravi Zacharias. I say no. Jonah, if you haven't used your power and authority and have, I don't know the details, but have done any type of illegal sexual misconduct, if Ravi Zacharias has done this and you have just thought about these things but actually haven't done it, Jonah Richard, you are better than Ravi Zacharias, in my opinion. Way better. But in Christianity, it seems like if you take Jesus, the words reported Jesus said at face value, yeah, we're all Ravi Zachariases, right? This is the sickness of Christianity. I've always said that Christianity is the only religion where you can commit adultery while having coitus with your spouse, because it depends what you're thinking of, right? He was a man, not a deity. God exposed this for a reason. I bet you if I did a word search on the word Satan or devil, here we go. Where's I got 2 hits on devil. A lot of people are going to blame this on Satan. Let me get back to the live stream chat here a little bit. By the way, I am open to having Christians call in and tell me what they think about this. Camille Gregor Ahmad here says, I wonder if more Christians believe the accusation of Ravi's victims were tortured and didn't recant. Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like a lot of Christians will believe the eyewitness testimony found in the traditions and the texts of the New Testament because they were willing to die. Are these women willing to die for their testimony? And did they, if they are willing to die, make sure you give them a chance to recant and say, look, if you recant and say we're lying about Ravi Zacharias, we'll let you live. But if you don't recant and we find out you're lying, you're going to die. Do we have that for any of the disciples of Jesus? Do we have any evidence that these martyrs, the first generation martyrs, had an opportunity to recant? No, we don't. Here's Susan Morales, who I've done some videos on. I'm inclined to believe there are many more hidden stories like these of Christian leaders we look up to. This is why we all need Jesus. Isn't Jesus a Christian leader you look up to, Susan Morales? It should turn our attention to God's holiness and have us depend on his help to keep us from our own sinful capabilities. Susan, this is my point. You look up to Jesus in the same kind of way as you did Ravi Zacharias, but even more so. And yet the evidence for Jesus, who he really was, what he really did and said, you don't know. In the thing I read earlier, we had electronic devices that shows, tracks the money and so forth. Do we have anything like that for Jesus? Like, this is really going to offend Christians, what I'm about to say. But when Jesus was in his own private time, do you think he ever got a massage? Oh, I know this is blasphemy what I'm doing here. But if Jesus was just a man, that could have happened, right? Paul, the gospel authors, Jesus himself, they had brothels back then, I think. It's the oldest profession. Well, Doug, that would have been recorded if something like that would have happened. That we would have record of that. Are you sure? If Jesus would have made mistakes and done bad stuff, are you sure that we would have records of it that would have been preserved? Christians, you do not know Jesus. You know what texts and traditions say about a guy named Jesus, written decades later. Is this too much? Should I stop? This makes me sad as well, but reinforces the truth that we are all sinners in need of a savior. I may be guilty of being one who thought he was superhuman, super Christian, but he is just a man. Brilliant and incredible talent with communication, but merely a man, making Jesus that more profound. This is from Martianary. Martianary? That's an interesting name. Maybe Jesus was brilliant and talented, but just a man. See, it's this, for Christians, they need this, and in a way, it's laudable, I guess. They need this figure that they can put up on a pedestal of a perfect example of how to live. But you don't know that Jesus was a perfect example. You believed old texts that says he was. This makes me very sad. That's why we should have faith in God alone. No pastor will ever be like Jesus. How do you know that? Let he who has no sin cast the first stone. I don't minimize the sin or the impact of sin. I just feel a lot of people in glass houses are going to be throwing stones. I'm sad at the news. If you dig, oh yeah, this is good. If you dig deep enough into anyone's life, you will find moments that will bring shame. How deep can we dig in Jesus's life? What's this guy's name? Justin Brown. Would you take this and apply this to Jesus, Justin? If you dig deep enough into anyone's life, you will find moments that will bring shame. If we were to dig deep enough in Jesus's life, I mean, if we had the time machine and followed Jesus around, would we find something that Jesus did that would bring shame? I hate that this may have been a persistent sin for Mr. Zacharias, but my God is big enough for even persistent sin. If Ravi Zacharias, if Justin's right here, that Ravi Zacharias lived a life of persistent sin, sexual sin, what does 1 Corinthians 6 say? Is it 1 Corinthians 6 or 9? None of those who live an immoral life shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. If this was indeed a persistent sin, is Mr. Zacharias in heaven? Christians, for those of you who believe that? In fact, I'm an atheist, and if Christianity is true and the traditional view of hell is true, Ravi Zacharias and I might be bunk buddies in hell. Sorry, that's actually I'll be in a better, more scenic view because I didn't do those things that Ravi did. How is it possible to only write about the good things someone has done if they weren't perfect? Checkmate, Doug. Checkmate. Ravi was not Christ. See, this is what I was saying earlier. This is the common response that you'll see from Christians. Well, what do you expect? He's just a man. Ravi was not Christ. No Christian should hold any man equal to him. Ravi was imperfect like the rest of us. Christ is who we follow. I should probably write what I said earlier down. You do not know who Jesus is, one for all. You think you do, but you don't. You've never seen Jesus. You've never heard Jesus audibly. You've never touched Jesus. And there's I would say, maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of people probably who have done that for Ravi. Seen him, heard him, touched him, of course, read him. His own words, by his own hand. You haven't done that for Christ. Christians, you do not know Jesus. You've never experienced Jesus. You've experienced the idea of Jesus in your head. I pray this wasn't true. Incredibly sad. Actually, let me, in case some Christians want to come in and vent, I'm open to that. Let me get my whereby open here. My wife was a pretty big Ravi Zacharias fan, and she's very disappointed. Okay, so my whereby, if anybody Christian wants to talk about how they're feeling about this Ravi thing, you can, or tell me why I'm wrong, why you think you do know Jesus better than Ravi. You can come on in. Who's next? Oh, Camille, no, Camille. Who's next? My bet is on Frank Turek. First time on here. Who are you, says Gary Miller. Who am I? I am PineCreek. Say my name. That's a Breaking Bad reference. I'm just a guy, Gary. Just a guy, but welcome. So my prediction is that Ravi Zacharias International Ministries will change its name. I'm willing. I made that offer to bet a long time ago. Nobody took me up on it. No Christian. Is it a call-in show today? Yes, I'm willing to have some Christians call in and talk to me about Ravi. Yeah, I apologize, Jerry Pana. I'm actually thinking of growing a mustache. That looks hideous. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, I've been busy because of Christmas. PineCreek has Satan running the camera. Yeah, he does the behind the scenes stuff. By the way, there's a lot of Christians who very early on suspected that Ravi basically didn't defend Ravi one bit. And I can think of Randall Rouser, he was one of them. Hey, thank you for the donation, Arnie Rovik. What's that you usually say? Taking my kids to Arby's money? It's Christmas. I'm drunk and you're funny. Well, thank you so much for the. How much is that in US dollars? Let me see. It's $11.58. Thank you for the donation, Arnie. It makes me look more satanic to have this? No. Christians, don't be shy. Call in. Tell me why you think Ravi Zacharias' legacy is not going to hurt Christianity, or if you think it will, what you think about it. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it? Do you disagree with me? This is the moral of the story. This is the theme of this live stream. Christians, you do not know Jesus. You think you do, but you don't. And the evidence for Jesus is way less than the evidence for Ravi Zacharias. You thought you knew Ravi Zacharias' character, but you were wrong. You think you know Jesus is sinless, but you're right with even less evidence. This is the theme of this live stream. To me, what I just said makes it's so reasonable. Doug should actually grow a full beard. It'd be funny. Yeah, I should. I want to grow a mustache and a mullet, if I can grow a mullet. I know there's Christians in here. Feel free. You don't have to show your face. I want your take on this Ravi thing. I made a video about this in September. Might as well play it. A lot of you have seen it. It actually has 14,000 views. But this is what I said in September, basically what I'm saying now.
This good man, this godly man, in Ravi Zacharias, God gave us the greatest Christian apologist of this century.
The greatest Christian apologist of this century. And now look what happened.
What you may not have known is that Mr. Zacharias had a side business, and it was a business that allowed him regular opportunity to be alone with women. Mr. Zacharias was in the health spa and massage business. And based on my recent interviews with one of his male business partners and with two women who worked in the spas, what he did in those massage rooms was not just sexual, but sexually abusive.
Hi, Tim Barnett here from Stand to Reason. It's fascinating to me that we can fall in love with someone just from watching their videos and reading their books and listening to their podcasts.
This is the irony of this. And Tim Barnett, I know you probably feel terrible now after saying this, but you're admitting that you can fall in love with someone just by reading their books. Did you fall in love with Jesus by just reading some other author's books about Jesus without even knowing Jesus? What you fell in love with was with an idea in your head. Oh, we have someone here. Let me see who it is. John. Hey, John, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Your mic and your camera's off. You have to go up to the settings and then turn it on in the gearbox. I'll boot you for now, and if you get it figured out, call back. Okay, let me go back to Tim Barnett.
They begin to inform and correct our thinking. They mentor us. We even hear their voice in our heads.
He's describing Ravi Zacharias. We hear Ravi's voice in our heads. Do you hear Jesus in your heads? Do you hear the will of God in your heads? This is what we can learn from Ravi Zacharias here. Let's see if it's going to work now. Don't disappoint me. Oh, I think it's good. Hi, John.
Hello.
Yes. Do you want to be seen or no?
I'll let you save me.
Okay. So what did you want to say about Ravi? Are you a Christian?
No.
Oh, okay. Then why are you here?
I think you look at things a little wrong. I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in that crap. But I don't think it hurts people.
Tell that to the victims of Ravi.
Victims.
No victims? Okay. Have a good day. Now, again, we don't know exactly the details, but let's get back to...
And as time goes on, a relationship begins to grow and develop.
Here's what the three witnesses told me about Mr. Zacharias. I had a, quote, close relationship with Ravi. He was a sexual pervert, and I know of many women he molested. During a particular kind of treatment that did not involve the client removing their clothes, Ravi exposed himself to me and, quote, asked me to massage around there.
And as somebody who did get to know Ravi, I can tell you why. It's because the same man you saw on stage was the same one that you would see behind the stage.
The same man you saw on stage was the same man you saw behind the stage. Like, I really feel sorry for this guy for saying that publicly, because all evidence is now seemingly pointing to that is false. And the thing is, the same Jesus that you read in the Gospels, is it the same Jesus that actually existed? You sure? You were sure about Ravi. Are you sure about Jesus?
I asked, did Ravi harass the women? Quote, that is all true, unquote. I asked a woman who worked there, why would a wealthy man like Ravi go into the massage business? Quote, his back and sexual perversions, and to satisfy whatever sick part of your brain, unquote.
And I'm so thankful for the legacy of Ravi Zacharias. When I reflect on his impact in my life, here are some of the things that stand out. I love the character by which he lived his life. It seemed as if he lived with uncompromising integrity.
Uncompromising integrity. It seemed that way, doesn't it? Oh, man. His name eludes me right now. What's his name? Someone can tell me. He's the 1 minute apologist guy. It seemed as if he lived his life with uncompromising integrity. But it turns out that you were mistaken, right? It seemed like Jesus lived his life sinless. You see the comparison here?
Quote, I felt guilty not crying out to the world of his deviant appetite, but he threatened me and I was afraid of him, unquote. Quote, I told him to get help from his brothers at RZIM. He went ballistic, unquote. Since Mr. Zacharias had claimed his policy was never to be...
By the way, what this guy's saying right now, links are in the description of this video. I shouldn't say most. A lot of Christians just denied. Are they more open to these quotes being true now or not? After Ravi Zacharias International Ministries themselves say that there's truth to the sexual misconduct allegations.
Alone with women, I asked, were the Javan massage therapists male and female? Answer, they were both. Quote, but Ravi preferred the women, unquote.
I thought it was funny that Nabil, who was still a Muslim, was calling a Christian the perfect speaker. It's pretty cool that several years later they ended up working together, and that now that former Muslim and that former atheist are basking in the glory of the risen Lord.
Yeah. That was right earlier. 1 Corinthians 6, 9 to 10. David Wood, if you ever hear this, are you still confident that Ravi Zacharias is basking in the glory of the risen Lord? Or do you believe 1 Corinthians 6, verse 9 to 10, that those who live their life persistently in sexual immorality shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven? What say you?
Former Muslim and that former atheist are basking in the glory of the risen Lord.
Yeah, if Christians thought they knew the character Ravi Zacharias after reading, seeing, and hearing him, do they really know the character of the New Testament gospel authors or the Apostle Paul, whom they have not seen, heard, touched, but only have read? Christians, if you can be wrong about Ravi Zacharias, why can't you be wrong about Paul, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and even Jesus? This is the lesson to be learned about Ravi Zacharias. Not that all men are fallible and we need to put our faith in Christ alone. No. That's not the real moral of the story. The real moral of the story is you don't know Jesus. You think you do, but you do not. Hey, thank you for the donation, Beowulf. Doesn't it seem as if RZ was clean that affirms Christianity, but if he was sexually perverse, that affirms it even more? Yeah, I think you're getting at that the whole idea of the sinful nature, that it provides a impetus, a motive, a need for Christianity. So Doug, was Ravi a true believer or a con man? Good question. Only Yahweh knows the true heart of Ravi, right? I mean, like, I'm sorry for playing those videos to all those apologists who basically went on a limb, and because I know in the back of their mind they knew some of this stuff, but just they basically said, no, this is not true. I know the real Ravi, and great character. I feel sorry for all those apologists who went on record saying that, given what's happened now. Christians that want to talk about Ravi, call in here, says Chen. Yes. Maybe I need to be more specific with my questions to Christians. My question is, tell me why I'm wrong that my claim is you don't know Jesus. You think you know Jesus, but you don't. That's my claim. Tell me why I'm wrong about that. Tell me why you think you know Jesus more than you know Ravi Zacharias. And if you're a Christian who knew Ravi Zacharias, loved what he did, his ministry and so forth, and now admit that he was fallen or wrong, that he had bad character in a lot of instances, tell me why that doesn't apply to Jesus. Just because a book says he was sinless? Really? Really? Tell me you're not that gullible. See, a lot of Christians will poo-poo Mormonism because they say stuff like Joseph Smith was a con man. But imagine all the negative stuff about Joseph Smith were gone. And all we have is the stuff he wrote or that his followers wrote. You can't use the argument that Joseph Smith is a con man now because you're unaware of it. What if that's the case for Jesus? Well, why would they write he was sinless if he wasn't, Doug? Really? If that's your response, just think a little bit. It's because of this idea of we need to have this example to follow for the greater good, the kingdom of heaven. Christ had to obey the law perfectly, or the whole concept of the gospel does not work. Yes, James Hampton, it was part of the sequel called the New Testament. But Doug, would they die for a lie? Well, how do we know they died for the resurrection of Jesus and not just for being troublemakers? How do we know how they died in the first place? Because of things written 100 years ago? 100 years after Jesus apparently walked the earth? Yeah, Chase Holt, you're right. I'm hitting really hard on Christmas Eve. I love Christmas, but Science Pete says there should be a counter on this channel every time Doug says the word Jesus. My guess is no Christian's going to come on today and talk about this, especially on Christmas Eve. But I want you guys to spread the word, spread the moral of this story. Christians need to be challenged whether or not they really know Jesus. What you know is what you read from about 2,000 years ago. That's what you know. Better luck on Easter. James Hampton, are you a Christian? The question I have for Christians is, if you think you knew Ravi's character and were wrong, can't you be wrong about Jesus's character? You saw Ravi, you heard Ravi, you talked to Ravi, you read Ravi. A lot of people know Ravi. People alive today that you could talk to knew Ravi. The character of Ravi, according to all those people, was wrong. What they thought was the character of Ravi was wrong. Now, all you have for Jesus is you've read what some people decades later said about Jesus. If you didn't know Ravi with all that evidence, the character of Ravi with all that evidence, what makes you think Jesus was sinless? Christians need to stop viewing the books of the Bible as special. They're not. They're made by humans. They are flawed. And sometimes what humans write is flat out wrong or doesn't represent history. How can you be sure you know someone? Boris Kuducho, that's a great question. And I would say it's through experience and time. But my point is, no Christian listening right now has experienced Jesus. None. No Christian has experienced Jesus here in this way that they've experienced Ravi Zacharias. Now you can say I don't know the inner testimony of the Holy Spirit. Really? Is that what experienced Jesus is? Because I can tell you can line up a whole bunch of different Christians who have the inner testimony of the Holy Spirit to say who Jesus is, and they'll come up with different answers of who Jesus is. But if you are talking to Ravi Zacharias, a whole bunch of people who have known Ravi Zacharias and asked this question, when Ravi Zacharias was, I don't know, the 50-year-old Ravi Zacharias, what color was his hair? If you say auburn, if one Christian says auburn, the other one says blonde, and the other one says black, and the other one says gray, there's a problem there, right? That's what you have with Jesus on people's view of who Jesus was. Camille says a Christian might say that if there were dirt, it's not was, Camille, it's were. If there were dirt on Jesus, it would come out just like it did with Ravi. That's what a Christian would say. And what would your response be? My response would be, what if the people who wanted Christianity to flourish hid that, destroyed that? Or maybe you're just unaware of that, and that what was written about Jesus was decades after, and all the juicy little dirt on Jesus, just basically no one cared, no one knew, just... If you want to write a great story about Jesus, if you want to write him as sinless, then you're not going to include the dirt, because then he's not sinless. James Hampton asks, what's this hang up on Ravi? Why are you so focused on him? I'm not that focused on him. The last time I did a video on Ravi was, I believe, September 16th, which is many months ago. But I'm talking about it today because just less than 24 hours ago, Ravi Zacharias Ministries admitted to wrongdoing on Ravi's behalf. We cannot know or respond to God by our own means, just like not everyone can hear a musical pitch. James, you're welcome to come on so you don't have to type. I know it can be really laborious typing. The Bible is not the only recorded account of Jesus. Proverbs 17:11. Yes, you are correct. The Bible is not the only recorded account of Jesus. We have other accounts, but what were their sources? Proverbs 17:11. What was Josephus's sources for Jesus? How did he know about Jesus? That's what you're saying now is like someone in the early 1900s saying, a historian of the early 1900s talking about Mormonism, who wasn't alive when Mormons came out, and just reporting what other Mormons said, or what Mormons, their texts and what people have said. This is another thing that when I was just coming out of Christianity really bothered me. It's like, really, your confidence is raised just because Josephus mentions Jesus? Really? Why? It should not. Your confidence should not be raised at all because Josephus or some other extra biblical writers talk about a miracle worker or whatever. Good point, Frenchman Fury. In some countries, there'd be people knocking on my door right now, wanting to exterminate me. How to call in, James? You see on top of the screen, there's words, there's letters. Take those letters and put them in your browser and press the enter key. If you're on a phone, on a cell phone, smartphone, you'll have to, well, it might just work just perfectly on your smartphone. It might download a Whereby app. It's safe. Trust me, you can know the character of me way better than Ravi. You can trust me. It's fine. It's fine. You're good. You can trust my character more than Ravi. That's funny. John Calvin would want me dead. Well, I don't know. John Calvin would probably appreciate some of the things I've said in the past. I'm on record as saying Calvinism is more consistent than non-Calvinism. Oh, yeah, good idea, linguisti. 200 Pine points for you, Linguisti. I can do that right now. I think I can. Let me do that. Edit. Paste. Save. Okay, so now if you refresh what you're seeing now, you can copy and paste the link. But I would think people know how to spell www.whereby.com/PineCreek. It's not that hard. No Veracruz. No viruses on your phone. Actually, it's safer to download things on smartphones, isn't it, than desktops usually? Korag says, I've never met Doug in person, but I met somebody Doug met in person. Yeah. Is that really true, Rava Doug? We'll give James a little more time, or any other Christian who wants to come in. James Fordor says, I always found Ravi's sermons to be kind of manipulative. Well, you know, people say that about me too. Because Ravi appealed to people's emotions a lot. If you take away your love for Ravi Zacharias, if you're a Christian, and just look at the things he has said, most of the time he doesn't say much. He is quoting other people. But he uses emotion quite a bit. I cannot use that app. Security protocols won't allow. Well, you can bypass your security protocols. Just say yes or allow, can't you? What convinced you to become a Christian? Are you talking to me in the first place? For me, it's like most Christians. I was born and raised in it. For me, it was the fear of hell, not so much the carrot of heaven. And then, like most Christians, you have doubts between the ages of 18 and 22. I had doubts. I bought Ravi's book, and poof, I was a firm Christian for a few more years, my mid-30s. Do not bypass security protocols. You can trust the character of PineCreek. You've seen me. You've heard me. You've experienced me. Christians, oh, okay, here's the clip, the quote of the day for the Christians listening. Christians, you know me better than you know Jesus. Because you've seen me. You've heard me. You've asked me questions. I've responded to you in person, or personally. Well, actually, some of you have seen me personally. Was PineCreek a victim of the PineCreek theorem? No. I was a Christian before I met my wife. But the PineCreek theorem, I think, led me into the false church of the Pentecostalism for a few years. I would only trust Doug if I read the Book of the Flying Man. Well, that's coming to a bookstore near you very shortly. No, I'm kidding. I have no desire to write a book. Sorry. And sorry, James Fordor, I really don't understand why anybody would write a book when you can do a YouTube video. So much easier. Hey, thank you for the donation, Ken Hoven, CPA. Ravi's whole life was a lie, and it got him 40 million. Yeah. Will emotions always be more important than truth for humans? Well, who's the guy who said that we humans are like riders on an elephant? and the elephant controls the direction, but the rider can sometimes nudge it one way or another. But the elephant, when the elephant wants to go somewhere, the elephant goes somewhere. The rider really has little control. That's the same way with humans and emotions over intellect. Intuitions over intellect. Hey, thank you for the donation again. Wouldn't it be great if Doug was bald and a genius? Oh, wait. Shave, Doug. Just do it. No, my wife doesn't want me to. Sorry, Arnie. PineCreek Doug is the hole in your heart. Do I fill the hole in your heart? That hurts your feelings, James? Well, go in your room and cry for a couple hours. You'll feel better. How many books have you sold, James? You don't have to answer that, but I'm curious. Doug, do you reckon most apologist pastors deep down don't believe in Christianity? No, I think most do. It's because there's a payoff, and the payoff is the promise of eternal life, hope, meaning, purpose, explanation. And so any doubts that they have just usually don't overcome that balance. So which are the emotions, the elephant or the rider? The elephant's the emotions, Darkin. The rider is the intellect. I just, for the first time, watched from start to finish the movie 12 Angry Men. It's a classic from, what was it, the 50s, 60s? And that is a perfect example. There's one character in that movie where you see that the elephant is controlling the man. Do I think Ravi truly believed in Christianity? Yeah, I do, loins the Lord. I don't think he was a con man. I think he was a man who was sick. He had a very poor view of himself. He was probably a man who was hurting a lot of times, especially in his younger years. He was a man who needed the love and acceptance and adulation of others. I would love to see Doug go to Craig Reed's church. Yeah. For those Christians who were offended when I said you don't know Jesus like I do because I've experienced Jesus, I'm here to tell you, no, you have not experienced Jesus. You have not. You have experienced the idea of Jesus. And a lot of times when you think you're experiencing Jesus, what you're experiencing is a psychological priming, oftentimes in church when there's beautiful music playing, or when you're hurting and there's some bad stuff in your life and you're really, really sad, really, really tired, then you have these feelings, these emotions pour over you like Jesus is there for you. Now, I will say that I'm making those claims right now, but I could be wrong. Yeah, sure, maybe Jesus did rise from the dead 2,000 years ago, and maybe everything that the key stuff in the Gospels is true, and maybe the Holy Spirit's real and all this sort of thing. But I tell you, the evidence for that, it's pretty bad. And the point of this live stream is that the evidence for Ravi Zacharias' character is way better, and you were wrong about that. So why can't you be wrong about Jesus? You got 2 minutes, Christians, to call in. Otherwise, I'm going to go open some presents. 500 copies you sold? See, now look, James. If you sold 500 copies, that means 500 or 1,000 eyes. Like this video I just played of Yeah, you thought you knew Ravi Zacharias then, you think you know Jesus Christ now. Has 14,000 views. That's 28,000 eyes. Now you might have made more money off those 500 book sales than me on 14,000 views. Granted. But I think the future is not in books. The future is in video. Books are for old farts who like to lick their fingers and hear the sound of a page turn. Now, I do find value in books that are digital, and you can do word searches. But I guess, I don't know. Thank you, No Name. Time for the airing of grievances, yes. I'm sorry, man, betrayed you. What? Who betrayed me? I was just hurt as a young child. I never got enough hugs. Is that what you're saying, Proverbs 17:11? If I can't know the truth until I die, is it wise to believe it now, or should I only believe things for which I have sufficient evidence? Good question. I think the latter. Poof. That didn't work. Poof. My apologies to Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. A representative was scheduled to come on and talk about this, but we ran out of time.